All right, let's talk about intercepts. Now, an intercept is when the graph crosses the axis. Now, versus an intersection is when two graphs cross. But when any one of those graphs crosses the x or y axis, then we have an x or y intercept. So the y-intercept is up here, the x-intercept is down there. Now the y-intercept is always at the coordinate 0, y, because the y-axis is at x equals 0. If this x-axis, so if I put numbers on the x-axis, this is x equals 1, this is x equals -1, that means the y-axis itself is x equals 0. So the y-intercept is always 0, y, where y is wherever it crosses the y-axis. Same thing for the x-intercept is x 0, the y value is 0 because the x-intercept is at y equals 0. So this gives us a way to find our x and y intercepts simply by plugging in 0 for x gives us the y-intercept, plugging in 0 for y gives us the x-intercept. So let's practice that. I'll start with the x-intercept. So if I'm looking for x, that means I need to get rid of the y, so I'll plug in 0 for y. So 0 equals x squared minus 2, so now I'll just solve this like I normally would solve a quadratic of this form. I will add the 2 to the other side, take the square root, and remember, anytime you actively take a square root, there are two answers. There is a positive answer and a negative answer. Don't forget the positive negative. The square root of 2 is not just the square root of 2, it's positive negative square root of 2. So that gives me two separate x-intercepts, one at positive root 2, 0, and one at negative root 2, 0. So there are my two x-intercepts. Now let's find the y-intercept. If I'm looking for a y-intercept, that means I'll plug in 0 for x. Plugging in 0 for x, well, that's super easy. 0 squared minus 2 is just -2. So my y-intercept is the coordinate 0, -2. All right, here's two more for you to try on your own. See what you can do. Press play when you are ready. All right, looking at question B. Y equals x cubed minus 4x. I'll start the same way I did before, the x-intercept, by plugging in 0 for y. Now here's where I'm going to remember my Algebra 2 techniques. We notice that both terms have an x on them, so we can factor out the x. So we're left with x equal to 0 and x squared minus 4 equal to 0. Now, if you remember, x squared minus 4 is a difference of two perfect squares. You could factor this further as x plus 2, x minus 2. But I say, why bother with that? We can just add 4 and take the square root. So we have a x-intercept at the coordinate 0, 0, and we have an x-intercept at positive -2, 0. So I have, in this case, 3 x-intercepts. Notice that it's a third-degree equation, and I have 3 x-intercepts. Keep that in mind as we go through the course. And to find the y-intercept's always super easy. Just plug in 0 for x, and in this case we get 0, 0, which makes perfect sense. If the x-intercept is at 0, 0, then the y-intercept should be the same location because the x value is 0. So anytime you get an x-intercept of 0, 0, that tells you automatically your y-intercept is also 0, 0. Now notice I only boxed the y-intercept. It really doesn't matter. You don't have to present two answers, or you don't have to present the same answer twice. I just went ahead and picked one at random to highlight. All right, let's look at this one. Now, this may look like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, when in fact it's almost exactly like the last question. So looking for the x-intercept, just like before, when I have, let me back up to what I did before. Before I factored out that x, we have the zero product property that says when I'm multiplying two quantities, in this case x times x squared minus 4, and it equals 0, that means either x equals 0 or x squared minus 4 equals 0, or both could equal 0. The zero product property says when two quantities are multiplied together, set each one of those quantities equal to 0. Well, in this case, I have two quantities, once again, being multiplied together, and it equals 0. The first quantity is x squared. The second quantity is the entire square root of 9 minus x squared. So I can go ahead and break that up, set each quantity equal to 0, and solve like normal. So on the left side, take the square root of both sides. I don't get positive negative 0. There is no such thing as positive or negative 0. It's just 0. On the right side, if I square both sides, square a square root, it cancels out. 0 squared is still 0. So then subtract 9, divide by the negative, take the square root, you get positive and negative 3. And also notice we've got 0, 0 as our x-intercept again, which means our y-intercept better be 0, 0 as well.